The right way to certify. Digital certificates are supposed to be our protection against fraud and theft and all of the nefarious methods of the botnet builders. But the certification system is hopelessly broken. We must fix the world certification problem now.
The commercial certification industry would have you believe that they have solved site security problems. News reports about site security problems tell us otherwise. What would we expect? Where are the incentives for commercial certification authorities to do their job properly? Let's stop and think for a moment about certification. What is certification anyway? Just what is a certificate? The answer is really quite simple. Any certificate, whether on paper or on bits, consists of authority attesting to the validity of an assertion, that is, a claim. Your driver's license is authority attesting to the validity of your assertion that you're competent to drive. A passport is authority attesting to your legal right to travel abroad. A license to practice a profession, such as physician, or lawyer, or architect, or building inspector, is public authority, attesting to a practitioner's assertion of professional accountability and competence. Your birth certificate is public authority attesting to the assertions of your parents and hospital staff to the circumstances of your birth. A site certificate is authority attesting to the validity of an assertion of ownership of a domain or site. An identity certificate is authority attesting to your assertion of who you are, as represented by a public key. Correction: a site certificate is supposed to be authority attesting to one's assertion of ownership of a domain or site. An identity certificate is supposed to be authority attesting to the binding of a public key to a person. But when you examine the use of that word authority in the expression certification authority, you discover that in most cases, the claimed authority is a fabrication. Unlike the attestations in the more traditional forms of certification, where the source of authority is clear, site and identity attestations come from nothing but a marketing effort of some commercial enterprise to convince the public that they possess authority that, in fact, they do not. Matt Blaze famously points out the obvious problem with that arrangement. Imagine if the world worked like this. Or this. In fact, that's exactly the kind of certification that the security of the world's information infrastructure is built upon. Where did we ever get the notion that certification is something to be performed by anyone who happens to have a server that runs some cryptographic software? Or the notion that certification is something to be merchandised, like toys and bail bonds? The commercial enterprises that constitute the certification industry assume none of the criminal liability that a public official, such as a notary public, takes on when they put their good name and seal on a document. Making matters worse, there's also very little civil liability involved. The inevitable result is that digital certificates are made and sold like Cabbage Patch dolls. The consequences of such a preposterously casual treatment of the concept of authority could easily have been predicted. Actually, the disaster was implicitly predicted by Phil Zimmerman and others, as evidenced by their creation of what we call collegial certification, where formal certificates are replaced with signatures of acquaintances and colleagues whose personal knowledge of the subject individual allows them to attest to the validity of the subject's identity claims. PGP and its derivatives, including GPG, work well for collegial groups. That is, groups which have elements of community and which include a fair proportion of members who understand digital certification. Much more recently, in the wake of the DigiNotar fiasco, hybrid forms of certification have appeared, where the right to certify is conferred in a collegial fashion. This enables collegial certification of domains and sites. Like PGP, this will work well for groups which have elements of community, and which include a fair proportion of members who understand digital certification. Now let's consider the plight of the majority of the world's population, which has little or no understanding of the concept of certification in the digital realm, and most of whose communities include few people with such understanding. How easy will it be for organized scammers and criminals to game the collegial certification systems and convincingly portray their certifications as reliable? Collegial certification is an excellent solution for groups whose members care enough about their information infrastructures to understand how they work and to guide their operation. For the rest of the world, collegial certification introduces new vulnerabilities. Collegial certification will be seen by fraudsters and scammers as an inviting possibility to further corrupt the HTTPS system through the same techniques that have made their phishing adventures so effective. You can trust this route because it's been signed by all these people. When a Latin notary or a signing agent authenticates a document, they invoke public authority to attest to certain of its claims. The Latin notary or signing agent assumes both criminal and civil liability for the integrity of their act. Signing agents, sometimes called certified notaries, are notaries in common law jurisdictions who meet additional qualifications beyond those required of regular common law notaries. Note: public authority does not mean government authority. Although the distinction between state and government has largely been forgotten, an illustration will show that it is still in effect. A government's authority stops at the boundaries of its jurisdiction. Meanwhile, an apostille or birth certificate or passport that was made in Illinois, USA, will be legally effective in North Korea, Iran, and Cuba. Those are instruments of state, not government. The distinction is important, especially in an age when the distinction has largely been forgotten. The notary signing agent who applies the public authority of state to a document acts autonomously without involving any government bureaucracy.
If you think about it, the word state means much the same thing in computer terminology as it does in the language of governance. State, in both settings, refers to the official record of a reality, in a context where that record must be acknowledged and used by multiple parties.
The need for authoritative certification has existed for millennia. All of the workings of Roman society depended upon the integrity of the tabelliones. PKI itself has been around for decades. The combination of the technology of digital certification with some very old principles, methods, and procedures of authoritative certification will give us the basis for a global system of reliable certification usable by all communities regardless of their level of sophistication. Introducing the city of Osmium. A few facts are in order. Frequently anticipated questions. What is the city of Osmio? Osmio is a municipality. The first version of its municipal charter was written at ITU headquarters in Geneva on March 7, 2005. Its visitor center is at osmio.ch. That's Alex Notoko of the ITU, Ugo Bicchini of the International Union of Latin Notaries, and Wes Kusmal, author of Quiet Enjoyment, at the first City of Osmio Municipal Charter meeting on March 7, 2005. What happens in Osmio? Osmio operates certification authorities. Osmio applies duly constituted public authority to the community's principal export, which is digital certificates. Who owns the city of Osmio? As you own the city or town where you live, so Osmio is owned by its residents, and by residents of online jurisdictions that accept the authority and ordinances of the city of Osmio, their capital. The city of Osmio is not owned by the ITU. If you establish an online residence in one of its jurisdictions, you own the city of Osmio. How is Osmio governed? The governance of Osmio is thoroughly by means of the participation of the governed. Any resident of Osmio or a province of which Osmio serves as capital may be a commissioner, as long as they are active in the deliberations of the relevant commission. Active means sustained participation in the debates of the one or more of Osmio's commissions, in whose governance the resident wishes to contribute. What are examples of Osmio commissions? The Certification Practices Commission of Osmio's Vital Records Department is responsible for the department's certification practice statement. The Certification Operations Commission of the Vital Records Department is responsible for ensuring that the CA's operations conform to the CPS. Recent events have brought attention to the fact that the International Telecommunication Union's policies are formulated by the governments of its member states, many of which would like to limit the internet freedoms of their citizens. How will that affect the governance of Osmio? The city of Osmio is explicitly owned and governed by individual internet users around the world. The governance of Osmio has nothing to do with the governance of the ITU. Where is the city of Osmio? It's on your desktop or in your pocket. A small token terrestrial location in Geneva is also under consideration. Why only identity certificates? Why not site certificates or code signing certificates? Osmio is founded upon a set of 12 principles called the Quiet Enjoyment Infrastructure. Quiet enjoyment is a real estate term identifying what the occupant of a building is entitled to, a secure environment that fulfills its intended purposes. One of the 12 principles in the Quiet Enjoyment Infrastructure is Accountable Anonymity. Everyone wants privacy for themselves, and everyone wants accountability from others. QEI reintroduces the kind of pervasive personal accountability that's found in a village of 700 people in a way that protects the privacy of members of a global village of 7 billion people. How can you have anonymity and accountability at the same time? By using zero-knowledge proofs and other methods, some of which are almost as old as the automobile. Accountable anonymity requires measurably reliable identities and the ability to assert identity without disclosing identity. Osmio's Vital Records Department, that is, its Identity CA, operates on the motor vehicle registry model. Anyone can see your car registration, but they can't know the identity of the driver or owner without demonstrating a right and need to know. Accountable anonymity is built using a variety of techniques. The foundational certificate, the digital birth certificate, is kept as a private breeder document, just as your paper birth certificate is kept private and infrequently presented as a breeder for passports, driver's licenses, and other day-to-day proofs of identity. Other methods for preserving both anonymity and accountability include zero-knowledge proofs and rotating credentials. Does the Osmio Vital Records CA displace commercial CAs?
Probably not, but it does change their role.
The commercial enterprises that now perform certification provide a valuable ability to manage high-volume certification services. Osmio supplies what those certification authorities have lacked, that is, authority. Just as commercial enterprises provide software, services, and materials to the Department of State for the making of passports and motor vehicle departments in the issuance of driver's licenses, there is an important role for enterprises that can help Osmio in the application of its duly constituted public authority.
As it is, commercial CAs have taken on liabilities that their stockholders should be apprehensive about. As analysts get more knowledgeable about certification, sooner or later this vulnerability will get written about, causing negative effects on stock prices. By relieving themselves of the ill-considered assertion of authority that was not theirs to assert in the first place, CAs also relieve themselves of significant liability.
Where can I learn more about Osmio and the Quiet Enjoyment Infrastructure? Go to Osmio's Visitor Center at osmio.ch and take a look at its charter. And consider establishing a residence in one of the communities for which Osmio serves as administrative capital. If you have time, watch our series of videos about the Quiet Enjoyment Infrastructure. And thanks for watching The Right Way to Certify.